Hey everybody, welcome back for another deep dive. And today we're going to be looking at something that I think a lot of designers are going to get a huge kick out of.
Okay.
Stone mosaic tile.
Ooh, yeah.
This is some beautiful stuff, and we really wanted to dive deep into it because we've got a lot of information from a variety of sources.
Right.
We've got TileBar product descriptions and installation guides. We've got some interesting customer service emails, and even some great tips from the World YouTube channel.
Excellent.
So what we really want to do is make sure that you understand all the nuances of working with this kind of tile.
Okay.
So you end up with a beautiful and durable installation.
Yeah, those are both key for sure.
So, I was looking at TileBar's Nature Collection, and wow, the variety is incredible. I mean, you've got everything from pebble tile to river rock, honed marble, and all different shapes and sizes. It's like bringing the outdoors in.
It really is. It's that natural beauty that draws people to stone mosaics.
Yeah, and each piece is unique. It's got its own variations in color and shape and even thickness.
Definitely.
And I can see where that could create some challenges during installation.
Oh, yeah, for sure. I mean, you can't just slap these tiles up like you would with a uniform ceramic grid.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
You really have to think about the installation process almost like an art form.
Yeah. You've got to have a more thoughtful approach.
Yeah.
A more artistic approach to the installation.
Yeah, and it seems like that was one of the big takeaways from all these sources that we looked at.
Right.
I was reading through a customer service email where someone was complaining about the Pram Gray mosaic, and they couldn't get it to line up right. They couldn't get those perfect grout lines.
Oh, yes, the dreaded sheet lines. It all comes back to those natural variations we were just talking about, right? Each sheet can be slightly different, so even if the tiles themselves are perfectly aligned within a sheet, the sheets might not line up perfectly with each other.
Yeah, so it's almost like you're working with sheets of tiles instead of individual tiles.
Exactly.
And those sheets have to interact in a way that minimizes those visible grid lines.
Right, and that's why all these sources really stress the importance of a dry layout before you even think about putting down any thin set.
Oh yeah, the dry layout. I remember the Stone Mosaic Tile Installation Guide actually called that step crucial for identifying and addressing these alignment issues.
Yes, and it makes perfect sense if you think about it. It's like doing a jigsaw puzzle. You want to see how all the pieces fit together before you start gluing them down.
That is a great analogy.
So with stone mosaics, you're really looking ahead and trying to anticipate how those sheets are going to come together and how they're going to interact with each other.
And it sounds like during that dry layout process, you can start to make adjustments.
Yeah, absolutely. Sometimes it's as simple as slightly offsetting the sheets to break up those straight grout lines.
Oh, so you don't want them all lined up in a perfect grid?
Not necessarily. The Tile of the World video actually shows a technique called edge adjustments, where they show you how to offset the sheets.
Well, very cool.
Yeah.
I like that. And I noticed they also had some tips on how to kind of embrace those variations and use them to your advantage.
Right.
It wasn't always about trying to make those grout lines disappear.
Nope.
Sometimes it was about making them look more natural.
Exactly. It's about working with the inherent beauty of the material, not against it.
I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and one of the ways they did that was by leaving wider gaps between some of the sheets and then filling those gaps with loose stones.
Yeah, that creates a more organic, almost seamless look.
It does. And I bet that takes a bit of practice and a good eye for design.
It does. It really does. But sometimes, it might even require removing and resetting individual stones that are causing alignment issues.
Okay.
If they're too tight or misaligned, you might need to remove them and reset them to make sure that everything fits together nicely with a spacer.
So the key here is to be patient.
Yes.
And really take your time during that dry layout.
Absolutely.
Because it's worth it to get it right.
It is. It's really interesting to me how much all of these sources emphasize that dry layout process.
Yeah.
It's not just like a nice-to-have step. It's crucial.
Yeah, preparation is everything with this material.
Right, because once you start putting that thin set down, you're committed.
You're committed, and you don't want to have to go back and try to fix something.
Exactly. You don't want to end up with those unsightly sheet lines after you've done all this work to get this beautiful stone.
Yeah, you don't want to undermine all your hard work by skipping that crucial step.
Right. And it's important to think about not just the alignment of the tiles, but also how those sheets are going to interact with other surfaces.
Yes, absolutely. So, your walls, your countertops, even transitions to other types of tile.
Oh, so those transitions need special attention.
They do. They do. Because those irregular shapes and thicknesses can make it tricky to get a smooth transition.
Yeah, I can see that.
But luckily, the World videos actually have some great tips for dealing with transitions.
Yeah, I'm all ears.
So one of the things they talked about was a technique called feathering.
Yeah, and what that basically means is that you're gradually adjusting the height of the thin set as you approach the transition area.
Okay.
So instead of having like a bump
Right.
where the two surfaces meet, you're creating more of a smooth slope.
Oh, okay. So you're blending the mosaic into the surrounding surface.
Exactly. Yeah.
All right. So we've got our detective hats on. We're doing the dry layout. We're mixing tiles from different boxes. What's next in our quest for natural stone, mosaic mastery?
Next up. Well, it's a seemingly basic tool, but it can really make or break your installation.
Okay. Oh, okay.
It's the trowel. And for these natural stone mosaics, the magic number is a 1/4 inch by 1/4 inch notched trowel.
Wait, hold on. Why that specific size? I mean, a trowel is a trowel, right?
You would think so, but that 1/4 inch by 1/4 inch notch, it is critical for controlling how much thin set you're putting down. You see, you don't want too much thin set because it'll squeeze up between the irregular shapes, get in those bright lines, create a big mess. But you don't want too little either, right? Because then, you might compromise that bond between the tile and what you're setting it on.
It's like a Goldilocks situation.
That is.
Not too much, not too little. Just the right amount of thin set to get that perfect bond.
Right.
And that 1/4 inch notch helps us do that.
Exactly.
Okay, so we got our trowel. We got our thin set. We're ready to go.
Yeah.
Do we just lay the sheets down and hope for the best?
Not quite. You're going to have to use a little muscle here.
Okay. And I remember the World video. They had a great analogy for this. They said to think about it like making a good handprint in clay.
Oh, yeah.
You want full contact with each stone.
You want a nice solid impression.
Not just a superficial bond.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You're really pressing those sheets firmly into the thin set to make sure each stone is bonded properly.
And speaking of those sheets, remember how we were talking about them warping sometimes?
Oh, yeah.
Because the mesh backing was pulled too tight.
Yeah, it's a pretty common issue.
So is that a deal breaker, or can you work around it?
It's not a deal breaker at all. You just need to be a little bit more careful during the installation.
Okay.
So you might need to use some of those techniques we talked about earlier, like removing and resetting individual stones. Or maybe adjusting the spacing between the sheets to accommodate that warping.
So once again, it's all about being adaptable and having those techniques in your toolbox.
You got it.
It seems like there's a lot more to stone mosaic installation than meets the eye.
Definitely.
Okay, so we've got the tiles set. Now what about grout?
Ah, yes, the grout. The glue that holds it all together.
Right, it gives that finished look.
Exactly. But with stone mosaics, choosing the right grout and applying it correctly is even more crucial than with other types of tile.
Why is that?
Well, one thing to keep in mind is that natural stone is porous.
Oh.
Meaning it can absorb liquids.
Including the grout.
And that can lead to staining if you're not careful.
I remember reading about that in TileBar's product description for the Nature Antique Lava Black Pebble honed mosaic tile. They were very clear about the risk of staining if those grout pigments get into the stone.
Yeah, and that's why pre-sealing or using a grout release agent is absolutely essential when you're working with natural stone mosaics.
So it's like an extra layer of protection.
It is. It creates a barrier that prevents that grout from penetrating the stone and causing those stains.
Okay. And then after you've grouted, do you seal the tile again?
Yeah, it's a good idea to seal again, just to add that extra level of protection and make sure it stays looking beautiful for years to come.
So sealing both before and after grouting.
Yeah, a good rule of thumb.
Good to know.
It's all about understanding the materials and making smart choices that will ensure a beautiful and long-lasting installation.
All right, well, I think that's a good place to wrap up part 2 of our deep dive.
Sounds good.
We'll be back with more insights and tips in part 3. All right, so we're back for part 3 of our deep dive into stone mosaic tile installation. And so far, we've covered a lot of ground, right? We talked about dry layouts, thin set grouting, all the really essential technical steps.
Yeah, we've laid a solid foundation.
We have.
Yeah.
But now I'm excited to kind of shift gears a little bit and talk about the fun part.
Okay.
The design possibilities.
Right.
Because with stone mosaics, you can create something truly unique and stunning.
Absolutely. It's not just about getting it installed correctly. It's about using these beautiful materials to make a statement.
Exactly. And I think that's where designers like you really come in. You have that vision to see beyond the individual tiles and imagine the finished masterpiece?
Well, it all starts with understanding the inherent beauty of natural stone, right? And figuring out how to use those qualities to really enhance a space.
So where do we even begin? What are some of the key design considerations when we're working with these types of tiles?
Well, one of the first things I always think about is scale.
Okay.
How does the size of the mosaic relate to the space where it's being installed?
Right.
Are we talking about a grand gesture, like a large future wall, or a more intimate detail, like a backsplash or a niche?
Yeah, because I imagine the same mosaic could have a completely different impact depending on the size of the space.
Exactly. And then there's the interplay of texture and pattern.
Right.
Stone mosaics offer so much variety in this regard. You've got smooth pebbles, you've got rough-hewn stones, you've got these intricate patterns created by the arrangement of the pieces.
And all of that contributes to the overall feel of the space.
And
like a mosaic with a lot of texture might create a more rustic, organic vibe, whereas something sleek and geometric might feel more modern.
Yeah, it's all about using those elements to evoke a certain mood or aesthetic.
And then, of course, we can't forget about color.
Right.
I mean, natural stone comes in such a beautiful range of hues,
It really does.
from cool grays and blues to warm browns and reds.
And you can use those colors to either blend in or create contrast.
It's like painting with stone.
Love that analogy.
You're using these natural elements to compose a work of art.
Exactly.
I think we've established that stone mosaic tile installation is so much more than just a technical process.
It is.
It's an art form
It is.
with endless creative possibilities.
Absolutely.
So I just want to encourage all of our listeners out there to embrace those creative possibilities.
Right.
Don't be afraid to experiment, to play with color and texture and pattern.
Have fun with it.
Because when you do, you're going to discover that this is not just a craft, it's a passion.
It is.
Well, that's it for our deep dive into the world of stone mosaic tile installation.
Great.
We hope you learned some valuable tips and techniques. And most importantly, we hope we've inspired you to create something truly amazing.
Don't forget to subscribe to Tile the World on YouTube. Join Craig on Instagram at TileNerdArmy. And for all your tile and stone needs, shop TileBar.com.
We'll see you next time.